tried one note. Ah! Rudolph's ears stood straight up. Santa's beard fluttered. Stella stopped. See? Santa adjusted his hat. Well, that certainly has some energy. Twinkle said the same thing. Stella looked miserable. I wanted to sound like the elves. I thought about that for a moment. Why? Because they sound beautiful. They do, and I don't. I leaned forward. Stella, do you think Rudolph should sound like an elf? No. Should Mrs. Claus sound like a trumpet? Stella giggled. Probably not. Should I sound like a canary? Rudolph snorted. Santa looked at him. Careful, Stella laughed. I smiled. Perhaps your problem isn't that you haven't found the elf's voice. Perhaps you haven't found your voice. Stella looked puzzled. What does my voice sound like? Well, that, Santa said, is something only you can discover. The next morning, Stella began listening, not to songs, to sounds. She listened to the wind moving through the pine branches. Whoosh! She listened to sleigh bells, jingle, jingle, jing. She listened to the reindeer hooves, clip, clop, clip, clop. She listened to elves laughing, ha, 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 ha. She listened to snow falling. That was harder. Snow almost is silent. But Stella discovered that silence could be part of music too. That evening, she tried again. Instead of shouting a note, Stella began softly. Hum. A gentle vibration filled the sky. Twinkle looked over. That sounded nice. You think so? Do it again. Stella hummed. Hum. Her golden light pulsed gently with the sound. Twinkle joined her. Hum. Another star joined, and then another. Soon 5 stars hummed together. It wasn't a song yet, but it was something. Stella smiled. For the next several nights, Stella practiced. Sometimes she sounded beautiful, sometimes she sounded like a goose again. The goose remained an important part of the learning process. One night, Santa tried a high note. Eee! Yeah, right. Twinkle winced. Goose? Definitely goose. They laughed. Stella tried lower. Hum. Better. She discovered that her voice was soft, warm, almost like a bell, heard from very far away. The brighter she glowed, the cleaner her sound became. And something else happened. Whenever Stella thought about something she loved, her voice became stronger. She thought about children laughing. Her note warmed. She thought about families together. It became clearer. She thought about someone doing something kind when nobody was watching. Her golden light shimmered. Twinkle starred. Stella, what? You're singing. There, I'm all on the screen too. Stella stopped. I am? You were. She became so excited she tried again too quickly. Ah, Twinkle ducked. Goose, sorry. A week before Christmas, Santa announced the annual North Pole Christmas concert. Everyone would perform. The elf choir, the reindeer bell team, the candy cane quintet, and Benny Bellbottom planned to play the triangle. Benny had been practicing for 3 months. Ding! Perfect, he said. Holly stared at him. You hit it once. Exactly. Stella watched from above. She wanted to join, but performing alone was different from practicing with Twinkle. What if I mess up? Twinkle asked. What if you don't? What if everybody laughs? What if everybody loves it? What if my goose comes back? Twinkle thought. The goose is always a possibility. Stella laughed. Then she looked down at the huge stage being built in the village square. I don't think I'm ready. Twinkle gently answered, maybe ready isn't something you wait for. Maybe it's something you grow into by trying. On the night of the concert, the North Pole glowed. Lanterns lined the snowy pass, garlands wrapped around buildings, thousands of tiny lights sparkled from the giant Christmas tree. Families of elves gathered. Mrs. Claus served cocoa. The reindeer wore bells around their necks. Santa walked onto the stage. That would be me. Ho, 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 welcome everyone. Cheers filled the village. The concert began. The candy cane quiet quartet sang. The reindeer bell team jingled. Benny stepped forward with his triangle. Everyone became very quiet. Benny raised the little metal striker. Ding! The crowd exploded with applause. Benny bowed. 3 months well spent. Then came the final song. The North Pole Choir began softly. Stella knew this song. It was called Light for Someone Else. It was about sharing hope when someone needed it. Stella hummed along quietly from above. Then something unexpected happened. A gust of wind swept through the village. The choir's music sheets scattered. Pages flew everywhere. One landed on Santa's head, another landed in the cocoa. Benny chased one across the square. I've got it. He did not have it. The singers stopped. Everyone laughed, but everybody knew where to restart. From that moment, the entire village became quiet. Stella looked down. This was her chance. Her light trembled. I can't. Twinkle moved closer. Yes, you can. What if, Stella? She looked at him. You don't have to sound like anyone else. Stella remembered Santa's words. Find your voice. She thought about the song. She thought about kindness. She thought about the people below. Then Stella began to hum. Hum. A warm golden sound had drifted across the sky. Everyone looked up. Stella continued. The hum became a melody, clear, gentle, beautiful. The light pulsed with every note. Twinkle joined her, then the other stars. The sky itself seemed to sing. Below, the choir recognized the melody. One elf began singing, then another. Soon the entire choir joined. The reindeer bells followed. Benny added one perfectly timed ding. Of course, I laughed. The audience began singing too. Hundreds of voices rose into the night. Stella wasn't singing above them anymore. She was singing with them. And for the first time, she understood. Her voice did not need to be the loudest. It did not need to sound like the elves. It did not need to be perfect. It simply needed to be hers. When the song ended, the North Pole became silent. Then came the loudest applause Stella had ever heard. I looked towards the sky. Stella. Her golden light flickered happily. Would you do us the honor of singing with us every Christmas? Stella couldn't hardly believe it. Really? Really? Benny shouted from below. We could use you in the triangle section. Holly looked at him. There is no triangle section. Benny smiled. There could be. Everyone laughed. From that Christmas forward, Stella became known as the singing star of the North Pole. But she never forgot how difficult her first note had been. Whenever a young star said, I can't, Stella would answer, Have you tried? If they said, I don't sound like everyone else, she would smile, Good. And if they were afraid of making mistakes, Stella told them about the goose. Twinkle always insisted that part remain in the story. Years passed and Stella's song became a Christmas tradition. Children's sometimes claimed they could hear it, especially quiet December nights. A gentle sound floating around the stars, not loud, not perfect, but warm, hopeful, and completely her own. Santa would sometimes stand outside the workshop listening. Mrs. Claus would join him. There she goes, I would say. Mrs. Claus smiled. She found her voice. Santa nodded. No. Mrs. Claus looked at him. Santa smiled towards the sky. She discovered she had one all along. And high above, Stella glowed brighter than ever, not because she had become the biggest star, not because she had become the loudest, and not because she finally understood something every child and every grown up deserves to know. The world doesn't need another copy of someone else. It needs the wonderful things that you can bring, your ideas, your kindness, your laughter, your courage, your voice. Sometimes that voice may tremble, sometimes it may crack. And yes, every once in a while, it might sound slightly like a goose, but that is all right because the first step towards discovering what you can do is having enough courage to try. And sometimes, somewhere tonight, if you look towards the brightest Christmas star and listen very carefully, you just might hear a tiny golden melody traveling across the winter sky, reminding everyone below your voice matters too. The end. Here's the moral of the story. The Christmas star that learned to sing reminds us that believing in ourselves does not mean we have to be perfect or become like everyone else. Stella spent so much time wishing she could sound like the elves that she almost missed the beautiful voice that belonged only to her. With practice, encouragement, laughter, and the courage to keep trying after mistakes, she discovered that what made her different was also what made her special. Never be afraid to learn, ask for encouragement, and make a few funny sounds along the way, and share your own gifts with the world because your voice, your ideas, and your kindness may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Wow, boys and girls, mums and dads, that one was pretty amazing. And a lot of encouragement in that story, that is for sure. Holy. But that's what we do here. We tell stories of encouragement, of positivity, of happiness, and a lot of smiles and giggles. Here we go, folks. Story number two, pull your blanket close, my wonderful friends. Pull your blanket up, settle into your coziest chair, and imagine the North Pole on a bright winter morning when the snow sparkles like sugar on and the rooftops are lined with long, shiny icicles. Beautiful icicles, twinkling icicles, icicles that look like tiny glass towers hanging from every roof. Now, before anyone gets any ideas, Santa would remind you that real icicles are for looking at from a safe distance. They are not swords and they're not drumsticks. And they are certainly not frozen carrots. Trust me on this one. Uh, Tonight's story is about curiosity, adventure, responsibility, and four young North Pole friends that discovered that being brave sometimes means knowing when to stop, think, and ask for help. At the edge of Santa's village stood the Crystal Frost Workshop, a cheerful little building where elves created snow globe scenes, winter decorations, and tiny, sparkling ornaments. Its roof was famous. Every winter, enormous icicles formed along the eaves. Some were short and round, some twisted together, others stretched nearly as tall as an elf. One morning, when morning sunlight touched them, they glowed blue, silver, pink, and gold. One young elf named Toby Tinseltoe. Say that name three times quick. Loved them. Toby was curious about everything. He wanted to know how snowflakes were shaped, why frozen prawns cracked without breaking, why reindeer seemed to know when someone was carrying an apple, and why Santa always said he was having only one cookie while standing beside a plate containing 12. I cannot lie, I only eat one. Toby's best friends were Mary Maple, Pie Peppermint, Pip Peppermint, and a young reindeer named Bramble. Well, Bramble's a pretty popular name in the North Pole. Mary was thoughtful. She liked plans. Pip liked excitement. Plans were something Pip usually made after the excitement had already happened, and Bramble was cheerful, loyal, and slightly clumsy. I think I've heard that story before. He could run beautiful across the snow. He could leap over fences. He could also trip over a shadow. Nobody understood how. One morning, the four friends stood outside the Crystal Frost workshop, staring at the roof. Pip pointed upward. Look at that one. A huge icicle hung over the corner. It was thick at the top and perfectly clear. The sunlight passed through it, creating tiny rainbows on the snow. Toby gasped. That might be the biggest icicle in the North Pole. Mary crossed her arms. Probably not. It's the biggest one I have personally seen today. That is more accurate. Bramble tilted his head. What makes an icicle grow? Toby's eyes brightened. Melting snow drips from the roof, then it freezes. Pip looked impressed. So technically, he paused dramatically. An icicle is a frozen drip. Mary nodded. Yes. Pip stared upwards. That is less exciting than I expected. They all laughed. Then Toby noticed something unusual. Behind the giant icicle, tucked beneath the edge of the roof, one small golden ribbon. What's that? Mary squinted. I don't know. Pip immediately stepped forward. Let's get it. Mary blocked him with one arm. Nope, why not? Because it's under the roof full of icicles. Pip looked upward. That seemed like a detail. That seems like the main detail. Toby thought carefully, what if the ribbon belongs to someone? Bramble nodded. It could have blown up there. Pip grinned. Then there is a rescue mission. Mary sighed. Why does everything become a rescue mission with you? It sounds better than ribbon retrieval. Toby laughed, but Mary had a point. They could not simply stand beneath the hanging ice and start poking about, so they went inside the workshop. Head decorator Holly Glitterpine stood at the long table tying bows around snow globe boxes. Toby, she said, why do you look like you have discovered a mystery? I have. Pip leaned forward. A very serious mystery. Mary nodded. It's a ribbon. Holly smiled. A very serious ribbon mystery. Toby explained what they had seen. Holly walked outside with them and looked at the roof. Oh, you know what it is? Toby asked. I do. She smiled. The ribbon belongs to the Winter Welcome Bell. Every year, the Crystal Frost Workshop hung a little brass bell near the roof. The first child visiting the North Pole winter fair was allowed to ring it, but yesterday's wind must have torn the ribbon loose. Holly said, can we get it? Pip asked. Not from underneath. Mary smiled slightly. Thank you. Holly pointed towards a side ladder attached safely to the building. We'll need an adult maintenance elf with proper winter gear to retrieve it. Pip's excitement faded, so we just wait. Yes. Pip groaned, waiting is adventure's sleepy cousin. Holly laughed. It is also how many adventures stay safe. The friends agreed. Mostly. Later that afternoon, they were playing near the sledding hill when Bramble noticed something moving across the snow. A strip of gold, the ribbon. The wind had loosened it completely. It fluttered down from the roof and landed beyond the workshop near a frozen creek. Toby pointed. There it goes. The four friends hurried after it. The ribbon skipped across the snow over one hill, past a stack of firewood, around a pine tree. Pip ran ahead. I've almost got it. The ribbon lifted again. No, you don't, Mary called. It is being difficult. Bramble galloped after it. The ribbon sailed over the frozen creek. Bramble stopped suddenly. His hoofs slid. He wobbled. He spun once, then sat down on a snowbank. Pip laughed. Excellent landing. Bramble looked around. I meant to expect this snow. Toby laughed too. The ribbon now wrestled on the other side of the creek. The creek was narrow, but the ice was thin in places. Mary immediately said, "We don't cross." Pip looked at the ribbon. "It's right there. That doesn't make the ice stronger." Toby stared. Really wanted the ribbon. It was part of the winter welcome bell, and he imagined how proud Holly would be if they returned it. But he remembered what she said. Waiting is how adventure stays safe. "What if we go around?" Toby asked. Bramble stood and shook snow from his fur. "There's a little bridge upstream," Pip sighed. "That is much less dramatic." Mary smiled. "That is why I like it." They followed the creek. The bridge was further than Pip hoped. He complained even 47 seconds. "I believe the ribbon is getting lonely," Mary answered. "It will survive. What if it misses us? It meant us 10 minutes ago." Friendships can develop quickly. By the time they reached the bridge, everyone was laughing. They crossed safely and walked back towards the ribbon. But when they arrived, it was gone. Pip stared. "No!" Toby spotted tracks in the snow, tiny tracks, rabbit tracks. The ribbon had caught on a low bush, and the little snow hare was tugging at one end. "Hey," Pip called. That hare froze. He had wrapped half the ribbon around himself like a scarf. Mary covered her mouth. "He looks fancy." The hare twitched his nose. Toby slowly crouched. "Hello?" The hare took one step back. "We just need the ribbon." The hare held tighter. Bramble whispered, "I think he likes it." Pip whispered back, "He has excellent taste." Toby did not want to scare the hare, so he stayed still. Then he noticed something. The hare was not simply playing. One end of the ribbon had become tangled around a small branch near his back leg. "He's stuck." Mary nodded. "We need to help him." Pip moved forward. The hare pulled away nervously. "Wait," Toby said. He thought. Then he took off his red scarf and placed it gently on the snow. "Maybe he'll come towards this instead." The hare sniffed. Bramble lowered himself beside the scarf. Very slowly, the hare relaxed. Mary moved towards carefully behind him and loosened the golden ribbon from the branch. The hare hopped free. He stood for a moment wearing Toby's scarf instead. Pip whispered, "We may have traded." The hare hopped twice, then carried the scarf towards a nearby bush. Toby laughed. "Apparently we did." They rescued the golden ribbon but lost one red scarf. Mary looked at Toby. "Are you upset?" Toby shook his head. "The hare needed it more." Pip raised one finger. "Technically, we do not know that." Toby smiled. "He looked very good in it." Everyone agreed. As they headed back, the wind picked up. Snow began falling slightly. Nothing dangerous, but just big soft flakes drifted across the air. Toby held the ribbon tightly. Then they heard a sound. Crack. Everyone stopped. Bramble looked around. What was that? Another sound. Crack. Ting. A small icicle fell from a nearby shed and broke harmlessly several feet away. Mary immediately moved everyone further from the building. Open space. They walked to the center of the path. Toby looked up. The temperature had warmed slightly. The snow on the rooftop was melting. Drips ran down the icicles. Some were loosening. Pip suddenly became very quiet. "They can actually fall?" "Yes, Mary." Pip looked serious. "I think I understood why Holly told us not to stand underneath them." Toby nodded. Earlier, the icicles had seemed like decorations. Now he understood they were beautiful things that still deserved respect. They hurried back using the open walking path. When they reached the Crystal Frost workshop, Holly was standing outside with a maintenance elf named Mr. Snowcap. Both wore hard hats. Mr. Snowcap was safely removing loose icicles from above the entrance. Holly spotted them. "There you are." Toby held up the golden ribbon. "We found it." Holly smiled. Then she noticed Toby missing scarf. "What happened?" Pip answered immediately. "We traded it for a fashionable rabbit." Mary explained the whole adventure: the flying ribbon, the creek, the bridge, the snow hare, the falling icicle. Holly listened carefully. When they finished, she smiled. I am proud of all of you. Pip looked surprised, even though we took a long time, especially because you took the safe way. Toby handed her the ribbon. We could have crossed the creek faster, but you chose the bridge. Mary nodded. We could have chased the rabbit, but you slowed down. Bramble smiled. We could have walked under the roofs, but you moved into open space. Holly tied the ribbon back onto the brass bell. Adventures isn't about doing the fastest or most exciting thing. What is it about? Toby asked. Making good choices while discovering something new. Pip considered that very responsible can be adventurous. Very. Pip smiled. I may need to update my definition. The next morning was the opening of the North Pole Winter Fair. Families gathered, children laughed, music filled the square. The winter became bell hung safety. Beneath a little covered stand, Santa arrived wearing his red coat. Beside him was a young girl visiting the North Pole for the very first time. Her name was Emma. Santa invited her to ring the bell. Emma reached for the golden ribbon. Toby watched. The ribbon had gone further than anyone expected. Across the roof, through the wind, over a creek, around a rabbit, and back again. Emma pulled. Ding-a-ling! Everyone cheered. Santa smiled as Toby and his friends. I heard you had quite an adventure. Pip nodded. A ribbon rescue. Mary said a responsible ribbon rescue. Bramble added, with a rabbit. I stroked my beard. Those are the best kind. Toby smiled. We learned something too. What was that? Toby looked at the sparkling icicles hanging safely in the distance. Something can be beautiful and still deserve careful respect. Santa nodded. Very wise. Pip added, and waiting is adventure's a sleepy cousin. Santa blinked. Mary sighed. We're still working on that. Everyone laughed. Later, Toby noticed that the little snow hare near the village edge of the village, the hare still wore his red scarf. Toby pointed. There he is. Santa looked very stylish. I thought so. Mrs. Claus appeared carrying a basket. Inside were three small red scarves. One for our winter visitors, she said. Toby smiled. Do you think one is for him? Mrs. Claus winked. I had a feeling. They placed one red scarf near the bush. The hare eventually came closer, sniffed it, and happily left Toby's original scarf behind. Pip picked it up. The trade agreement has been completed. Toby laughed. He washed the scarf later, twice. Bramble suggested three times. From the winter, from that winter forward, the four friends became known as the Crystal Lake Safety Helpers. During the winter fair, they reminded visitors to stay away from roof edges. They helped younger children across slippery paths. They reported loose ice to adults, and they always took the bridge, even Pip. Usually, whenever someone says, but the shortcut is faster, Pip would always put his hands on his hips. Then he would proudly say, faster isn't better if you ride with a problem. Mary smiled every time. Toby still laughed, loved icicles. He still studied how they formed. He still admired the rainbows hidden inside them. But now he admired them from the right place, safe, patient, curious, and wise enough to know that true courage is not rushing towards every adventure. Sometimes courage means pausing. Sometimes it means choosing the longer path. Sometimes it means helping someone smaller than you. Sometimes it means listening when an adult says, not that way. And sometimes the greatest adventures begin when you decide to make the smartest next step. One winter evening, Santa saw Toby looking at a row of icicles glowing beneath the stars. Beautiful, aren't they? I said. Toby nodded. Very. Do you still want to get closer? Toby smiled. No. Santa raised an eyebrow. Really? Toby thought. Well, he laughed. I want binoculars. Santa laughed so loudly that two nearby elves looked around. Now, that, I said, sounds like an excellent plan. And under the sparkling North Pole sky, the icicles shimmered quietly. The four good friends walked home together. Not the fastest way, not the shortest way, but the safe way. And sometimes, my friends, that's an excellent, that's exactly what makes an adventure worth remembering. Wow, boys and girls, mom and dad, here's the moral. The high school adventure reminds us that courage and responsibility belong together. Toby and his friends learned that being adventurous does not mean rushing into every situation or ignoring safety just because something looks exciting. Real courage can mean slowing down, listening, asking for help, choosing the safer path, and looking out for others along the way. When we stay curious, think about how before we act and make thoughtful choices, we can enjoy wonderful adventures while protecting ourselves and the people around us. Being brave is not about taking every risk. It's about having the wisdom to choose the right next step. Wow, boys and girls. Mums and dads, that was pretty awesome. All right. We have story number 3 and the final story for the evening. The horse who believed in herself. Do you believe in yourself? I hope so. Because tonight we're going to the countryside. We visited rolling green hills, red barns, wooden fences, fields filled with wildflowers, and one special horse who was convinced that everyone around him had something she didn't. One horse was faster, another could jump higher, another one was stronger, and another had a mane so beautiful that even Santa wondered what conditioner she was using. But our little horse was about to learn something very important. You don't have to be better than everyone else. You simply have to discover the best that is already inside you. The horse who believed in herself. At the edge of the little town called Meadowbrook stood a Sunny Acres farm. It was a wonderful place. Green fields stretched towards gentle hills. Chickens followed around the barnyard as they owned the place. Cows rested beneath enormous oak trees, and the horses galloped across wide pastures. Among them lived a young chestnut mare named Rosie. Rosie had reddish brown coat, a small white star on her forehead, and four dark legs that seemed slightly too long whenever she tried to turn quickly. Rosie was kind, Rosie was gentle, Rosie was curious, but Rosie had a problem. She did not think she was very special. Every morning she watched the other horses. Thunder could run incredibly fast. He raced from one end of the pasture to the other. Whoosh! Rosie's mane fluttered as he passed. Morning, Rosie. Morning, Thunder. Rosie sighed. I'll never run like that. Then there was Daisy. Daisy could jump. Small fences, logs, little streams. Once Daisy jumped over a hay bale simply because she could. Rosie stared. How did you do that? Daisy smiled. I jumped. Yes, I noticed that part. Daisy laughed. Rosie tried later. She approached the hay bale. She ran. She prepared, then stopped. Maybe tomorrow. And then there was Duke, a large draft horse. Duke could pull heavy wagons filled with hay. One morning, Rosie watched him move a wagon across the field. That must weigh 1,000 pounds. Duke shrugged, maybe. Rosie looked at her own legs. I'm not that strong either. Finally, there was Bella. Bella had a long golden mane that seemed to float in the breeze. Children visiting the farm loved brushing her. Rosie looked at her own soft, messy mane. She shook it. A piece of hay fell out. Rosie sighed. Wonderful. Everywhere Rosie looked, someone seemed better at something. Little by little, she began thinking, maybe I'm just ordinary. The owner of Sunny Acres was a kind woman named Mrs. Harper. She had worked the horses for many years. Mrs. Harper noticed Rosie standing there near the fence. She walked over carrying an apple. Good morning, beautiful. Rosie happily accepted the apple. At least Apples never asked whether she could run fast. Mrs. Harper brushed Rosie's coat. You know, Rosie, there's something special about you. Rosie flicked her ears. She probably says that to every horse. Mrs. Harper smiled. You just haven't discovered it yet. Rosie wished she could believe her. A few weeks later, Sunny Acres announced its annual Meadowbrook Family Farm Days. Children and families would visit. They would be games, hay rides, music, a picnic, and the famous Meadowbrook Horse Challenge. Rosie watched Mrs. Harper hang the posters. The challenge had several activities: a short race, a small jumping course, a wagon pull, and an obstacle trail. Thunder pranced excitedly. I'll win the race. Daisy smiled. I'll take the jumping course. Dukes nodded towards the wagon. I suppose that's mine. Bella tossed her beautiful mane. I do the presentation parade. Rosie became quiet. What are you doing? Thunder asked. I don't know yet. You should enter something. Rosie looked at all the events. What would I be good at? Nobody answered immediately. They weren't trying to be mean. They simply didn't know. Rosie's heart sank. I think I'll watch. She walked away. That evening, something unusual happened. A familiar jingling sound drifted across the courtyard. Mrs. Harper stepped outside. A red vehicle rolled towards the barn. Not a sleigh. It was summertime. Santa had learned that sleigh runners and dry roads were not a good combination. Instead, he drove a bright red pickup truck. On the side were the words North Pole Summer Delivery Service. I climbed out of the red wagon wearing suspenders and a cheerful flowered shirt. Mrs. Harper laughed. Santa? Ho, ho, ho! What brings you here? I was nearby. Mrs. Harper raised an eyebrow. The North Pole is not nearby. I smiled. I used the word loosely. I was delivering special peppermint treats for Farm Day. While Mrs. Harper unloaded boxes, I noticed Rosie standing alone. He walked towards her. Well, hello there. Rosie looked at him. Santa offered a carrot. Rosie immediately decided he seemed trustworthy. I hear there's a big event coming. Rosie lowered her head. I stroked her forehead. But you don't seem excited, Mrs. Harper explained. I listened. Then she looked at Rosie. So thunder runs faster. Rosie nodded. Daisy jumps higher. Rosie nodded. Duke pulled more. Another nod. And Bella has prettier hair. Rosie nodded enthusiastically. I stroked my beard. Rosie, I know someone with exactly the same
Today we get to welcome a leader who doesn't just build systems, he builds momentum, clarity, and confidence. Please help me celebrate Jordan Templeton Harris, founder and president of Fitzgerald Built, as the newest member of our community Pay It Forward giving family. He doesn't operate as a vendor, he operates as a force multiplier, a strategic partner who helps leaders. Whether an organization is growing, transforming, or trying to get unstuck, Jordan brings the operational intelligence and accountability that turn ideas into measurable outcomes. And now, he's chosen to stand with us, to make sure no one has to face a difficult moment alone. That's what makes this partnership special. That's what makes Jordan family. Please visit his profile, share his badge, and help us welcome him the way only this community can. Welcome to the family, Jordan. We're honored to walk this mission with you.
Warning, the brown cloud is approaching. Some will try to outrun it. Others may not be so lucky. But don't worry, it's all part of the fun at the Chili Cook-Off for books and board games. Where the chili is hot, the flavors are bold. And Bear E has your back with the official Brown Cloud Preparedness Kit. Follow the plan, know your exits, and whatever you do, hold your breath, because this temporary pain is all for a great cause. Join us, laugh with us, survive the brown cloud, together at Key Largo Lounge in Greeley.
Join us November 8th at 11 a.m. for the 10th annual Chili Cook-Off for books and board games at our home field, Key Largo Lounge, where our small market team is making a huge statement. Scan the code for tickets and sponsorship information.
Every day, someone in our community is facing a challenge they shouldn't have to face alone. Your business can change that. When you join the Community Pay It Forward family, your kindness becomes action, and your sales becomes hope. For as little as $20 a month, you help guide families, nonprofits, and neighbors from crisis to stability. One small step, one powerful mission, one community coming together. Join the family today. Visit the website or scan the code and become a business where people can shop with purpose and support with heart.
Hey friends, I've been thinking, we all have our strengths, right? There are things I'm great at and things I'm definitely not great at. I can talk to anyone, anywhere, but ask me to add something to a website or an app. Yeah, that's where things get a little messy. Oops, I love speaking, I love sharing stories. But social media, all those hashtags, algorithms, trends, that's a jungle I still haven't mapped out. Now, coming up with ideas that bring people together, that's my sweet spot. But bookkeeping, let's just say numbers, and I have agreed to stay in separate corners. And you know what? That's okay, because someone out there is good at those things. And when we work together, that's when the magic happens. Community Pay It Forward has never been about one person. It's a program built by many to support even more. Every single one of us brings something special to the table. We all have talents that make us strong on our own. But imagine how powerful we become when we combine them. That's the heart of Community Pay It Forward. Your skills, my skills, our hearts, working side by side to make a real difference. So tell me, what are you good at? Let's discover it together. Visit communitypayitforward.us and join the movement.